We are beautifully, melanated.
Welcome to the Beautifully Melanated podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Sarah, and I'm here with my co-hosts.
I'm Kay.
And I'm Karen. So today, our topic is domestic violence. So it's a very heavy one, but I think it's very, very important. So what I wanted to start by saying is that domestic violence is widespread, right? This is worldwide. And in the UK alone, I forget the statistic, but I think it's 4,000 women a year report domestic violence. When I think about domestic violence, I would think, if a man punches you in the face, gives you a black eye, breaks your ribs, yes, that's domestic violence. I think we'd all agree on what that is. But I think different people have different perceptions of what domestic violence is. And I'll speak for myself. So when I was very young, I was in a very turbulent relationship. And I did experience what I now know is domestic violence. But I think at the time, it was quite normalized, I think. So to me, it was as if we were fighting. It was, it was a bit of a jostle. It was a bit of it was an altercation. I didn't really look at it as if it were domestic violence. And I think that's what I want to have a look at. I think we all understand when domestic violence is at its extreme. We get that, and it's wrong. But I do think that in some cases, it doesn't seem clear. It wasn't clear to me as a young person. So really, I want to know, ladies, is any physical altercation, is that domestic violence? So if it's a slap, would that be domestic violence? Is it if he pushes you, is that also domestic violence? Because I think what I found was that even though for me it was low level stuff, it never got better, because I think that's the other thing as well. I think sometimes women will stay in things because they think it'll get better. It's not that bad. He loves me really. And then it can escalate, right, to what we all would agree is domestic violence. I'd also like to say that I think in some communities, I think it can be quite normalized. Like I say, it's widespread. It isn't, I don't think it has, color or race doesn't really have anything to do with it. I think it's across the board. However, I think that it seems to be, dare I say, more accepted in some communities. So, I remember my friends, when we were very young, like I say, would say, this happened to them also. But when we talked about it, it wasn't as if we wanted to seek immediate help, or if we said it to members of our family, nobody sort of said, oh my gosh, you've got to get out. Like I say, it was almost normalized, and that's worrying. As I've, gotten older, and I have children, I'm just so grateful that I think my children have a better understanding of what that might be. So we talk about things. We talk about, relationships and things, and especially with my oldest daughter. And she's very much of the opinion that, if a man even raises his hand at me, that's it, and I would hope she would do that. And there are some people that would. Some people say, oh my gosh, if a man even, looked at me too hard, or if he raised his hand, that's it, I'm gone. But I think for a lot of people, that's really not the case. I think there are a lot of people who, for whom domestic violence has become, I don't know, just something that's accepted, which is absolutely awful. So I just wanted to get your views on that, ladies. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to talk about is how it impacts children. Because I met with a young person recently through work who was having difficulties with anxiety and low mood. And we, through the assessment, we sort of unpicked what may be causing the problem, what was keeping that problem going. And she disclosed that she had experienced domestic violence, that her father was physically abusive towards mum. And she talked to mum about it and said, actually, you know, I feel like it impacted me. I'd really like to get some support. And mum said, you don't need support. It didn't happen to you. It happened to me. And that might sound like an isolated case, but actually it isn't. I've heard quite a few women say that. You know, I kept it away from the children. They didn't know. They didn't hear anything. They didn't see. I think they do. I think that often children hear, you know, behind closed doors, they hear through walls. And even if they don't actually hear it, it's just it's the animosity in that house, isn't it? It's they feel it. And I think it is so impactful. Like I say, I've seen quite a few young people who have experienced domestic violence, and it has so impacted on their lives in a way that perhaps parents didn't even realize. So, yeah, ladies, it's a big topic, but an important one, like I say.
Yeah, Karen, quite a big topic, but yeah, let's get straight into it. Where shall I start? So I agree that some of it is normalized in communities. This is what happens. And for me, I think that comes down from slavery, from intergenerational trauma of being beaten. And so we beat our children, and then our children grow up and they beat their partners. And I think partly why it's normalized in our community is because beatings are a thing. Now, how does a child separate out? My parent has beaten me because I've been naughty, from my partner's hitting me because he tells me I've been naughty, if you like. You know, you didn't do that quite right. Or I'm hitting you because that is very, very close to the dynamic in a parental relationship when we beat our children with violence and force.
Sure.
So for some, it is an indicator of love. And I kid you not. I had neighbors who we used to say get their Monday murder in, and they think it's love.
Wow.
But why would they not? If they were the children who grew up in homes where violence was an expression of something, then it is normalized. And they probably do expect to get beaten because my mum got beaten. I personally, my viewpoint has always been, if you even look like you want to hit me, please walk. Because if you do hit me to kill me. Because if I get up, one of us is going to die and it's not me. And I would play the long game as well. I would play however long it took, you're going to get back every hit you give me. And some. I like vengeance. What can I say? It's my toxic trait. And I remember when I was getting married, when I met my husband at the time, we were arguing over something. Do you know what it is, Karen? It's rough play. I don't like rough play. Because if you hurt me, I'm cross and then it's not playful anymore. And I remember we were playing a game, which was a stupid game. And he was like, oh, it's going to be fun. And then he ends up hitting me on my knuckles with this pack of cards. And I went mad. And I was like, no, this is a line. No, don't hit me. Not in joke, not in play. It is not funny. I was beaten as a child. I wouldn't say over beaten, but I was beaten. And so for me, that's too close to that experience. So is it loving? No. Is it funny? No. And if you do it, and now we're adults, I'm fighting you back. I couldn't fight my parents back, but I'm fighting you to the death. So I said to him, if you do it, you make sure you do it to kill me, because when I get up, it's game over. And so I put that line in the sand with an engagement ring on my finger. He never did hit me or look like he wanted to hit me, because it would have been blow for blow. But he did say at the end of our marriage that's one of the reasons why he didn't, because I made it very clear that there is no coming back from that point. If you've put your hand on me, you've lost respect for me. I've lost respect for you. We can't then go to bed tonight and cuddle, and I can't be cooking your dinner. I'll poison you. That's probably more likely what would have happened. But there is not a bit of me. And I don't know where that comes from. Maybe because my dad never hit my mom. So there was no violence in my immediate family, but there was violence around. And yes, we normalize it in a way that I think it does make it hard for some women, some men, to separate out the two. Now, when we talked about the topic, I thought, well, how is domestic violence different to domestic abuse? Because I always thought that it's got to be that by the time the man comes to put his hand on you, he's broken you down psychologically so that he knows he can. So the abuse led to the violence. That's how I used to interpret it, that you couldn't just randomly fling a slap across my face, box who, and say, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to, I won't do it again. No. So what led up to that first hit? What made him think he could hit me, for instance? So I'm looking at one of our local domestic abuse charity sites here in Kent. And what it is actually not differentiated. Physical abuse comes under domestic abuse. So the types of domestic abuse will be controlling abuse, where they tell you what you can't do, they stop you from seeing your friends, they isolate you, you end up walking on eggshells. Then there's a coercive control where they force or threaten to make you do something you don't want to do, intimidate, punish you, frighten you. Then there's a financial abuse where they take control of your money, deprive you of essential items, telling you what you can't buy, or force you to run up debts. There's a psychological abuse, which is non-physical, mental abuse that makes you feel that you're not in control of your own life and your thoughts. There's emotional abuse, calling you names, constantly changing their expectations of you, making threats against your children or your loved ones to manipulate you. There's the sexual abuse, forcing you to take part in sex acts against your will, or if you refuse sex, then you're going to have it anyway, or making jokes or demeaning you sexually. And then physical abuse, punching, kicking, hitting, slapping, choking, burning, spitting, pulling hair, depriving you of sleep, or using weapons or objects to hurt you. And those are just a sample. So physical domestic violence is domestic abuse. There's no differentiation, as in it's one of the ways. So in that sense, I was right, because if all of this is going on, by the time your partner puts their hand on you, you're already in their control. So does it impact children? I'm going to come back to that later, so Sarah can jump in. But absolutely, it is one of the reasons why many children are removed from their home into care. So I'm going to pause there, Sarah, for you to jump in.
So my experience. So when I was a lot younger, probably about 20, 21, I had a partner at the time, and he was very violent. We were living in London at the time, and he would do things like pick me up and throw me down the stairs and stuff like that. The problem I had, or intimidate me, tell me this, that, and the other, get me to drive in places and stuff like that to do various stuff. But the trouble I had is, being a kind of feisty 21-year-old, I would fight him on a regular. I would fight him, and I would throw a punch at him all the time. And that was a really bad habit of mine. I used to do that, and I probably had looked at it in therapy why I did that, but I did this with this relationship with this guy. So generally it was me that started the physical stuff, and then it would escalate. But every time he did something like try and throw me down a few stairs, I would get up and box him in the face, then he'd do it again. And it was such a horribly toxic relationship. And I was young, and I don't think I knew what the heck I was doing. I was so angry. It was awful. So my very good friend at the time, I remember at one point we'd had another argument, and she, said, that's it, I'm literally physically going to take you away from this flat, and I'm not going to let you see him again. I think I needed that. I needed someone to say, that's enough now. That is enough. Why are you kind of fighting? I mean, I'm 5'7". He was about 6'2", and I was still fighting, and that was a real problem. So yeah, that was that situation. And leading up to it, I think, as I was quite young, I think the guy was quite controlling, etc. But I just wanted to put that dynamic in too. I also was fighting him. So I think we were both horrific for each other. We were both brawling and fighting. It wasn't good. Then when I got older, I did meet somebody that was quite controlling after that, and that kind of broke me down, which made me think about clients that I've worked with have almost lost their entire sense of self in these long relationships with these very psychologically abusive partners. I'm just using women as an example. Obviously, it can happen both ways to women and men, but the women I'll say that I've spoken to that have been in very long-term domestic abusive relationships, often they talk about whole generations of abusive parents. I mean, there's also a teenager I spoke to that at work, and her mother was beaten up by I think her father or something, and then Nan was also beaten up. So then Nan beat her kids or something, and then great Nan also was abusive. So it went all the way down from great Nan, and she just said it was normal. Another client I was speaking to you guys before that said, "Oh, I thought that I just thought that everyone's dad kicked them," and that's going back into the kind of children thing. What Karen said to begin with, culturally, I found interesting because it made me think. I was watching this series on Netflix called Blood Sisters. People might have seen it. It's a Nigerian series, and in it, one of the characters is slapped by her husband. And they said that the best friend or something said, "Oh, you're going to let him do this again to you." And actually the mother came, it was on the day of their wedding, the mother came in and the mother said, she told her mother that my husband hits me and I don't want to go on with the wedding. And her mother said, "You have to go on with the wedding. You've got to go on with the wedding because, you're marrying into money and you can't just kind of leave us all like this. You've provided a life for us, paid for by this man." She said, "It's only a slap. It's only a slap. Just move on from it. Just ignore it. Just get on with it and marry him anyway." So that, even though it was a series, that kind of pointed what you were saying, Karen, about certain maybe cultural elements of this as well. It's just a slap. Get on with it. Marry him. He's got money. So yeah, definitely worth having a watch of that if people are interested. But yeah.
Wow. And so go ahead because economically we need his money.
That's right. We need his money. This dress is my dress is beautiful. Look at my dress, she said. Look at this love.
Wow.
She said it was only a slap. You must marry him anyway and just get on with it.
I think, it rings really true because I think for a lot of women, they feel so invested. They've invested so much time, so much energy, so much love. And I think we're often hopeful, aren't we, that, love will win, that we can somehow, it will get better. And often it doesn't. Similarly to Sarah, what I found in my experience is that I wasn't necessarily the instigator, but I definitely gave as good as I got. Do you know what I mean? So it wasn't, that's why I think that's for me was the confusion. It wasn't as if he was coming in and giving me a black eye and broke. It wasn't like that. It was, we were fighting. Yeah. That's how it felt. It felt that he was very he was quite an aggressive man, quite an angry sort of person. But I'd often slap him.
Yep. That's where the confusion comes.
And that's where the confusion comes. Yeah.
You're both at it.
You're both at
fighting.
it. Yeah.
You're fighting.
Yeah. You're fighting. That's how I felt. However, he was stronger than me physically. So really, he could have hurt me. And I just think any form of violence, whether it, the fact that it got to that was just not good. I mean, and I think going to family members and saying, actually, this is happening, like I do say, it was normalized. It just didn't seem as bad as it really was. And
because you were fighting.
Back,
because you were fighting with him. That's why, looking back, it's horrific. But I think also, I know that if I'd stayed in that relationship, if my friend hadn't come to that flat and kind of picked me off the stairwell and say no more, I could have really got hurt. I mean, the guy was 6'2", doing he just did security, He could have given me one box and that'd be the end of it. But at the same time, the making up, we always fought, but the making up from it was just like we had this amazingly passionate relationship. For 21-year-old gullible me was like the best thing ever. And I remember that guy, the lure he had on me, and I just suddenly thought that he was the best thing since sliced bread, and I would still fight him. And it's terrible.
That's a really good point as well. I remember lots of friends saying, "Yeah, but the makeup's so good."
Yeah.
What?
I know.
Yeah, that was
That's what I'm
normal.
saying.
That
And
was normalised.
I know it sounds really crazy to you, and for some people they
That
would
was
say
normalised.
absolutely not. But honestly,
Yeah.
in some situations, it is normal, or it was normal. I would
So
never.
the makeup sex is enough to wipe out the violence?
I think it was all part of the relationship. Okay.
Oh
Yeah.
wow.
The relationship was fiery, but at the same time, that particular man was, had issues with various problems in his life, basically. But the guy was 6'2", and a lot of people respected him. A lot of people thought he was wonderful. So very big character in a certain type of community. So was respected, highly respected, and feared. And for some reason, I think at 21, I thought that was alluring.
Yes.
Because I was young. But I mean, I was just looking now. I know we haven't talked about the children part yet, but you know how they say or they used to say to young girls, if he treats you like this or treats you like crap, then he must like you. That's a problem from the start.
Of course. If he pulls your hair and kicks you in the playground, he likes you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
What happened for you mentally? So you fought back. So then it's over, it's forgotten. You move on until the next fight.
Yeah, it's just because the whole relationship for me, anyway, I can't speak for Karen, but in at that time, it was, the whole relationship was intense. It was like it was just, I don't know. I think this particular character made the little 21-year-old me think that he was everything.
Right.
So I did everything for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Submit totally to him, then for him.
I think I completely relate to that. I think it wasn't that I thought he was everything. What I thought was that I could then feel the love outside of that. So there would be occasions where it was loving and it was kind and it was caring and it was all the things I wanted it to be. It's not as if it's horrible all the time. And that's what's difficult. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So
yes,
moments where it's great.
You forget about it. So I remember the guy I was with, I'd go to work and he'd say, right, I'm actually going to come to your work now. I'm going to bring you a lunch. That's just controlling. Bring you a lunch and I'm going to sit with you and you have your lunch and I'll go back again. And when you finish work, I'll be there again. But looking back now, age 40, it was so controlling. But back then, it was like, oh, he loves me. And he said, if you're lucky, I might give you some children. Like that, it's that kind of language. Hideous. Thank God he didn't. Listeners, thank the Lord he didn't. Because I'd be totally screwed if he did. Because I wouldn't want that kind of character hanging around me at all.
But I think it's really important that we talk about this because, Karen's looking at us as if you guys are crazy. But I'm so glad that Sarah has experienced something similar because I think the statistic is something like 1 in 3 women.
1 in 4. I'm looking at it actually. 1 in 4 women and 1 in 6 men.
Oh, I looked at it. It was 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men. It depends. Yeah, the site I was looking at maybe not so accurate.
Man, this is local. This is local to where we are in Kent.
Oh, I see. That was national. Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, but
I still can't go past that first hit, Karen. I'm thinking, so he hits me. I'm annoyed. I'm angry. All I'm thinking is vengeance.
The thing is, actually, the first time I hit him first.
Yeah?
I did, yeah. I remember it. I remember the very first time I had slapped him first. And then he slapped me back. Wasn't expecting that.
No. Well, fair enough. Totally not fair enough, but if you whack someone in the face, I'm not going to go,
it's reactive, yeah. But I'm saying, but even where did that come from? Why did I think that was okay to do that?
True.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I have to be reflective and look at that and say, where did that come from? I'm ashamed of myself, really, when I think about it, because I wouldn't dream of doing that.
Not now, but we're older. We're older. We're grown women now.
I know.
We were very young. Remember when I was 15, I slapped my mother. That was awful. I slapped my mother.
I'd be dead.
And she turned around and slapped me back. Yeah, she slapped me around the face back. I didn't slap her ever again. But then was that domestic violence? Not really. Yeah, teenager arguing with mother. Yeah, if it continued, no one was controlling that.
I think it's the power struggle, isn't it, between a man and a woman? I think it's just a different dynamic. Although there are children who are physically abusive to their parents.
Yes, there are.
Family.
Scared.
Yeah,
Scared.
where parents aren't afraid of the child.
I agree.
So that's another dynamic. That's another issue, perhaps.
The way I see it, if you are hitting each other, there is a moment when you lose control of yourself. So you're angry and you cannot regulate yourself and you cannot soothe yourself. And so you lash out.
Yeah.
It's a loss of control.
Yeah, definitely.
Now you put that in context of a parent beating a child, which is also very, very prevalent in our community. That adult losing control to the point where you're beating a child is telling this child that I have power over you. I can violate you. I can cross your boundaries. I can be violent to you, and you're going to still love me and respect me. We just chuckled, Karen, that if we had hit our parents, we'd be deceased. Absolutely. Or disabled. You know. So having someone completely dominate you like that when your parent is beating you, for me, I could never ever look at that outside of the context of my parent beat me because I did something naughty and a partner who I have sex with and love doing that. For me, it completely changes the dynamics. So then we've now moved from lovers to what, parent-child? And I'm not your child?
I completely understand what you're saying. I think for us, it was a lack of communication. I don't think we understood. So now, at this age, I can really communicate very well. If I don't like something, I can use my voice, I can use my words, and I can very articulately express how I feel and what my needs are. I don't think I had that ability then, and he certainly didn't. He could not express coherently what he needed. And that was a huge part, I think.
Was he beaten, Karen, as far as you're aware?
Undoubtedly.
There you go. There you go. So what he learned was, I don't have to use words. I don't have to regulate my feelings. I can just act them out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Through violence. And you talk about the impact on children. There it is. Children live what they learn.
Definitely. 100%.
So just because they go older doesn't mean they know how to effectively communicate or to say, I'm angry about this, but use words rather than the fist.
Yeah.
Exactly. They learn it from home. As a young girl I used to work with, and she was a teenager, and her boyfriend would do things like pull her across, pull her across the playground, stuff like, not playground, you know what I mean, outside area, pull her across there by the wrists, and kind of tell her things like, oh, you shouldn't have, get rid of your TikTok. I don't want you to delete it, stuff like that. And she'd come to me and say, I don't know what to do, because she's in a quite marginalised, but she's in a quite marginalised community. And she didn't know what to do, because in that community, you serve your man. There's a big hierarchy. The man provides money, and the woman will leave school very early, and they will be in the house with the children. So marry very young. So this girl was being pulled across the outside area, told to delete her social media, and told by this particular man or boy, he will decide what she posts on social media. And she kind of came to a cross point where she said, I don't know, or crossroads, I don't know what to do. Do I continue with this relationship because I love him? I think I love him, or is this okay? I've deleted it now. I've deleted my TikTok and it's important to me. I said, you know what? You're a teenager. I understand. It's very important to you. She said, I've deleted the whole thing. I've deleted everything. And she said, I feel that was wrong. And I feel him telling me what to do is wrong. I feel him dragging me across the outside area is wrong. And she ended up ending the relationship. And he tried to hit her in public.
Wow.
So that was all. It's just worrying to see a very young girl questioning. Yeah. It starts off with things like, what your TikTok, I don't like your TikTok anymore. What was she doing on a TikTok? It was just her face and shoulders talking. It wasn't like she was prancing around in a bikini, And
he knew she was.
Exactly. He didn't like it.
But that's really difficult because, as you say, she belongs to a particular community where that is the norm.
That's right. That's fully really the norm in that community. Fully the norm.
And that, you're trying to break cultural barriers there.
It's hard.
That's really hard. And there are pockets of communities that are like that.
Where women don't own themselves. You don't belong to yourself. Your body is your partner's. Yeah.
Yep.
And so, wow. I have told my daughter that the only time a man should ever put his hand on her is to show her love. And if it
Quite
doesn't
right.
feel like love, then don't be confused about what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's abuse. And you leave. And if you don't feel equipped to leave, I'll come and get you. And if you don't want me to come and get you, your brother will come and get you. And he's going to get the beating of a lifetime. That is part and parcel of it. He is going to get back every hit he put on my daughter. I have equipped her to recognize that it is not normal, even if other people in the community do it or normalize it. No, that is not love. Love is not being controlled or hit or abused.
And love doesn't hurt.
And love really shouldn't hurt like that.
Right.
No way.
Interestingly, I have friends, very close friends who, and even people in my family actually, where there was abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Someone has gone in, like, a family member, someone's gone in to support that woman, remove her from a situation, and she's gone back in.
Yeah.
So it's that's common as well. I think it's like you say, by the time that's happened, so many layers, has sort of built up to get her to that point where she feels as if she can't leave. I think it's just much more complicated and much more complex, perhaps.
It's about taking away the element of oneself. I met a lady that said to me in the end, I asked her, like, what, I think it was, what's your favourite colour or something? She didn't even know what her favourite colour was anymore. She had no idea, because it was a mother that had been abused for many, many years, both physically abused and emotionally and psychologically and financially controlled. And she didn't even know, she couldn't even pick you out a meal to eat because he had to agree at first. He told her what he'd eat, what they ate. He told her when she could go out, and he told her who she was. And it was very sad, because when that relationship broke down and she was with the children on her own, she didn't even know how to function.
Yeah.
So how to look after herself.
On average, it takes 7 times for a woman to leave before she finally leaves.
Yeah.
An abusive relationship. And this is why, because it's complex.
Yeah.
It's the psychological side of the abuse as well that keeps them there. But it makes me wonder about the men, and I don't work with men who have been perpetrators of abuse. I think I would struggle professionally. But let's say I wonder what's happened to those men, that this is the only way they can organize their life, is to be totally controlling and domineering of someone else to the point that you take the essence of who they are. And even then, they're not satisfied. Because Sarah, I'm telling you, he might say to her, I want chicken tonight, and the chicken isn't quite right. She'll get a slap or a face bust up.
Yeah, she. I remember when I saw her and she broke up with him. She would actually, her mum helped to put some makeup on. It's quite sad. She said, I haven't worn makeup for years, because he said if I wore makeup, then men would look at me, and therefore I was unfaithful, and I'd instantly cheat. And then she went back to him. I think she saw that. She just went back to him. You could see her getting more and more and more kind of, didn't look after herself anymore when she was with him. She looked like hell. Then he told her she was ugly. So it just, it's such a vicious cycle, because her self-esteem was so low. And if you then looked at her mother was beaten up by her husband. So it just goes on and on and on. Then you look at her daughter. Her daughter has a thing for very controlling men. So it's just...
That's the template.
Yeah.
This is how you do relationships.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's the groundwork we set when children are exposed to this, and we think, oh, but you're in your bedroom. It didn't happen to you. Yes, it did happen to them. And they would have been frightened, and they would have been confused. And they would also now be living in an unpredictable environment when they don't know when the violence is going to start. And that's the abuse.
I agree.
100%.
That's the abuse that stays with you, I think, that psychological stuff. And I think however difficult it is to leave these abusive relationships with these men or women, as a parent, I feel it's essential. Even if it takes someone 10 times to leave, they need to leave for the sake of their children. If it takes 20 times to leave, they need to still leave for the sake of their children.
Yes.
If you're on your own, and you decide to be with an abusive man or woman, then I think that's your business.
That's on you, isn't it?
Yeah. But if you have children, you must find a way to leave for the sake of your children, because you will destroy your children. You will destroy them. There's no other way around it. They will be destroyed.
And I think that's the really important message. If this podcast does nothing else, I hope it reaches certain people that they can hear that, because actually, I feel really strongly about that.
Same here.
You have to save your children. Like Sarah says, whatever you choose to do for yourself, that's one thing, but your children will experience trauma. It is traumatizing.
Yes. And there are so many resources out there. The Freedom Program, and that works primarily with women. And it is about the psychological, it's healing from that. It's coming to recognize what is abuse. There are refuges that they can go to with their children if they are made homeless because they choose to leave. It will not be an easy journey. But my God, you owe it to the children to give them a different experience of what love 100%. Is and what a relationship is. I'm just looking at some further stats, ladies, and we've considered this from perspective of able-bodied heterosexual women. The statistics say 1 in 4 people in same-sex relationships also experience domestic abuse. So just in case we think it only belongs to the heteros, no, it happens also in same-sex relationships. Disabled women experience abuse at twice the rate of non-disabled women. That's quite shocking.
That's quite shocking, isn't it? Yeah.
Twice the rate. Yeah. So if 1 in 4 of us experienced it, then for disabled women, it's 1 in 2. And transgender people experience abuse and harassment at a much higher rate than cisgender people. So, it's common across really all cultures.
Yeah,
really,
really
common.
Is. Really
yeah.
Is.
And people that can't vocalize. I remember when I used to work with some people in a special school, and some of the clients there were nonverbal, and the amount of abuse that I heard that a lot of those particular young people would experience because they weren't able to vocalize, they didn't speak. So it wasn't just obviously violence, psychological, it was a lot of sexual abuse was also experienced by that demographic of person. Really awful, that's horrible.
Awful,
yeah.
So if we are, if there are people in our community who also already, you're Black. Now, if you add another marginalized group of gender or sexuality or disability, how much at risk are they? Are we turning a blind eye? Do we see that? And if it's normalized in families, then for those women or men, that this is a life they have, one in which they're abused on many levels. I feel quite worried about that for us. I don't know if are any particular charities set up for women of color or men of color, but what we know we do have is nationally the Freedom Program. We do have refuges that do accept women and children who are fleeing violence and abuse. So, and the courts are there to help you to put protections in place for you and your children for stalking.
Kay, how about Southall Black Sisters?
Oh, now I've not heard of that. Maybe you can put that in a bio, Sarah.
Put that down because that's domestic abuse treatment and it is for ethnic minorities.
Wonderful, thank you.
That's a good one.
Southall, say that again?
Southall Black Sisters.
Fantastic. Now looking back at your experiences, Sarah and Karen, what would you say to your 21-year-old selves?
Oh, it's a difficult one. I think I'd say just take your time. That's what everyone always said to me in my life when I was young. Take your time and value yourself more because you don't need to be with somebody like this. This is not your journey. This man is not your journey. You're worth more than this. A lot of it for me was about the way I saw myself, the way I valued myself.
Right.
And also I felt I had something to prove. I can't remember why I thought I had something to prove, but I know that in that slapping him, I wanted him to listen to me. Like, how dare you even think you can go up against me? It was all, he might have been taller than me, but my ego was bigger than his. It was crazy. So yeah, I think what it was I wasn't, doing anything. I wasn't, I would think, what was I doing at the time? I think I was an estate agent or something. So I'd done no therapeutic work on myself or anything like that. So
Yeah.
I had no understanding. I just thought, this is it. It's fiery. It's a fiery relationship. So I think what I tell my 21-year-old self to slow down, and I have value. And that's, this man is not your future. Yeah.
Good message.
Great message. How about you, Karen?
I think I would say, stop trying to heal people who do not wish to be healed.
Oh, God, yeah. Life lesson.
Hallelujah.
Some
Leave him
people
alone.
cannot be healed. He is not
Yes.
a bird with a broken wing. Leave him
Yes.
alone.
Yes.
Walk away from the broken man. I would say that. Additionally, communication for me now is key. You know, I've been able to communicate really well with subsequent partners.
Right.
I say it as if I've had many. I don't mean it like that. But yeah, so I think communication is absolutely paramount. I now can express myself clearly and articulately, and whoever I'm with has to be able to do that. That is a non-negotiable. It's a must, because I never, ever, ever want to feel the way I felt in that relationship, where violence was the only way that we could communicate. I will never put myself in that position ever again. So yeah, those two things.
Yeah, it was brilliant, actually. And you're right, we are not rehab centers for men who don't want to do the work on themselves.
We're not. And so many young women I speak to are the same. They're kind of like the broken bird syndrome, broken bird with a broken wing. Oh, he'll change. Oh, he's really, aggressive, but it's okay. I can help him.
No, you
My
can't.
love will heal him.
I can heal him.
You can't.
You're not his mother.
No, exactly. You can't help him. You can't help. He must help himself.
He's got to help himself.
He must help himself. You know what? That to me is a lesson that comes with age, and it comes with experience.
100%.
I don't really know many
young,
people that process like that.
No. I think my wider hope for our community, it's not a thought, it's a truth. My wider hope for the community is that as this generation and our children's generation are breaking the trauma bonds, the legacy of slavery, that in time we will move away from thinking that hitting or being hit or not being able to control your anger is something positive, that they will see it as, this is not okay. You can get angry. Don't hurt yourself. Don't hurt anyone. Don't hurt me. Anger is energetic. It's appropriate, but it doesn't always have to translate into, I'm going to now lose myself and hurt everybody in the process. By not beating our children, I think we've started that shift. Our Gen Z generation, our daughters, I'm quite confident, would not go into relationships where they're controlled, where they're told what to do or what to wear, or I'm only jealous because you're so important to me nonsense. That narrative. I don't know that our daughters would, but let's say they did. Then let's have a village of women who come on, sweetie. This isn't it. This isn't love.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think because my attitude is completely different, I would never allow that. If my daughter came to me, in that situation or that scenario, my reaction would be completely different to the reaction I received when it was happening to me. Right? That's the first thing.
That's right.
And second, I think you're absolutely right, Kate. I mean, I think our daughters are not us.
Yeah.
No.
My eldest daughter, certainly, I always say, goodness help the man that because she's so independent. She's so confident. She is so, just self-sufficient, really. I don't think she could imagine a situation where she would need to put herself, in that predicament. So I think it's already changed. I think we can see the change. I think we can see the effect, which is fantastic. That's great.
Self-esteem, Sarah talked about that earlier. She's right. Women with good, healthy self-esteem are not easily gaslit or seduced by...
That's right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The words and the language. We one of the things I said to my daughter over and again, I said, Leah, you belong to yourself first. You don't even belong to me. Your body is yours. I was taught my body belongs to God, which, okay, let's not go there. But your body belongs to you first.
Yeah.
Who you share yourself with needs to be worth that. And if this young person is broken or traumatized or damaged because they too are hit or have had experienced abuse themselves, you're not the rehab. This young person needs to go into therapy. This young person needs to find their healing. So she is, like Jada, looking for someone who's healed, not someone who's broken.
Absolutely.
Because she's done the work on herself. So yeah, ladies or listeners, my encouragement is to love yourself first and then love from that place.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Good message.
Definitely. And I want to say quickly before we leave, if you do have a teenager or a young person that is in a domestically abusive or violent relationship and you're talking to them, they're coming to you and they're not listening to you, just stay with it. Please stay with it, because in the end of the day, they're going to need you. So yeah, just be there for them. Even if they say you don't know anything about it, I love him or her, blah, blah, blah. Just be there for them, because there's going to be a time that they're going to need you. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. All right. So,
and if anyone would like to comment on today's episode, please do feel free to do so via email.
Okay. Yeah, beautifully melanated podcast at gmail.com. And if you follow us on Instagram, it's at beautifully melanated podcast.
We look forward to hearing from you.
We do.
Right.
And thank you for listening. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
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 We are beautifully